It's interesting you mentioned that you're frustrated that people are harping on that 1 or 2% change in Black support for former President Trump, because I was about to read you a headline which reads, Kamala Harris has a massive lead among Black voters. It may not be enough. That's from Newsweek. And it's talking about how Black voters are an important coalition for Vice President Harris, and yet Republicans have gained ground with this group in 2020, and they're maintaining some of that support this cycle. And if that translates to 1 or 2% of the voters in a swing state that would have voted for the Democratic Party are now voting for the Republican Party, that could affect the outcome of this election. How are you thinking about Black voters, particularly those in swing states, and that 1 to 2% that might be changing their vote compared to 2016 or 2020?
Well, thank you for that question. There are three quick thoughts. My first thought is there are more people participating in the process. In the 2020 election, there were more people voted that ever voted in the history of this country. And as more people vote, I think you'll get a more diversity of ideas and positions that people take. And so by the nature of that, 1 or 2% of growth, I think is just the nature of democracy itself, the nature of people, more people participating in the process, right? That's one piece. The second piece, though, is I think that as a voting base, there's not another constituency group in America that votes as a high percentage of Black voters. And so I think that it is unfair, unjust, and quite frankly, quite racist that the statement around this idea that Black voters, all 100% of Black voters, the expectation have to vote for a particular party. There's no expectation of any other group of people that will do that. And with even given that we vote at higher rate as a percentage Black than any other group, only second to Black men. And so I think this expectation that we all have to go one particular way, I think it's also an anomaly, and I think it comes out of a particular kind of frame. And so I actually push back against that. The third piece, though, I think is like, I think polls give you a sense of a temperature. I think what we see on election day, and I heard the same thing in Georgia, in the Georgia Senate race with Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker. That was supposed to be this big flood of Black men that were going to go vote for Herschel Walker. We never saw it, right? Yeah. So that what we saw is we saw a very robust election, right? That we saw an election that when you go back and you look at the numbers literally fell in line. There was some growth, but the electorate itself has grown, right? That it was more in alignment with what we've seen in years, with some growth in that space. And so part of what I believe is I don't believe that we're in I think that it's not also the responsibility of Black people by ourselves to save democracy. I think that it is unreasonable to believe that every single Black person in America is going to always vote for the same person or the same way, right? What that actually lightens itself is as if we don't have even diversity of thought and ideas, even in our own communities, right? Even though I find it deeply troubling at this point. I don't know why anybody would support a platform that actually aligns itself with white supremacy and white nationalism. That's very challenging. But again, that is a choice. And so I say that to say that I think that the notion that I think what we're going to see is really around turnout. And I think Black women are going to drive that turnout. And I think when you look at the numbers, the explosion of young Black women who are coming to the table, I think you have to take that into account as well, that there are more young people, there are more people who are coming to this process and coming to the table, and for specific reasons in this specific moment. And I think that that's going to make the difference. I think where the focus should be is getting as many people engaged as possible in this election. And I actually trust the people to actually be able to get the kind of outcome that ultimately they want, that we desire and we deserve. And then you combine that when you're looking at that, that's one piece. But then when you're looking at, there's also death by 1,000 cuts. We've been seeing voter suppression bills, over 300 different bills throughout the nation around voter suppression that is designed to actually try to minimize the power of the vote and to shave off a few here, shave off a few there. But that's in response to more people are participating. That is in response to their young people and other people engaged in this process that have not normally been engaged in the process. So while, yes, there are these challenges on one hand, on the other hand, what I see is a tremendous amount of possibilities and potential that are with the electorate and the landscape, the political landscape shifting.